Hey, what's up? This is Trevor with FX Editing. Today we're going to cover the first of our 3 basic training tutorials. We're going to cover project, timeline, and composition window. And in this tutorial we're going to cover project. So let's get started. In the project you can have folders, you can have files, you can have solids, pre-comps, everything. And we'll get into all that later. But essentially, I just want you to see that this is where everything is. It's pretty comparable to Avid and Final Cut and Premiere. How you have a project window and all of your media lives here. And much like Final Cut and Premiere, it pulls from the Finder level. So if you move a file or delete a file, then it won't recognize it, and there will be issues. So just be mindful of that. All right, so what you want to know is you can create as many folders as you want. There's 3 ways to create folders. You can right-click and say New Folder. You could click File, New Folder, and you could also click this little doodad down here, and it says Create New Folder. So you just click that, and then you can just type something. I tend to like to go with 4 folders: compositions, elements, footage, and pre-comps. And I'll go into why those are in a later tutorial, but I can just set these up. So I created a new folder. I can duplicate it if I want with Command D. It's also an edit duplicate, but just for speed's sake, you could hit Command D and hit return to rename it and change it to elements. Obviously, the other option is this. You can name it footage, and then the other option is file, new folder. Oh, see, and then there's a problem. If you have a folder selected and you select File, New Folder, it's going to create it within the thing. We don't need that now, so I'll just do File, New Folder outside, name it Pre-comps, and we're good. And then this is where I would want to do it inside the folder, File, New Folder, X old. So this is my basic layout. I can go more in depth in when we create our first project and explain why this is all this way, but this is kind of my general setup. All right, next is creating a composition. So the way you do that is this little button down here, create a new composition. It's right next to create a new folder. Look at that, they're right next to each other. Fancy. All right, so if you click that, we'll get into the composition settings in a later tutorial. Just hit OK on that, and you have a composition. So if you just have nothing selected, you create a comp, it'll create it in the root. If you have a folder and you click it, you will create the composition in the folder, and you can also go up to composition, new composition. And so those are 3 ways to create a composition. And again, we're going to go into settings of a composition and everything in the next tutorial, which is down here. Composition is just like your timeline or a sequence in an NLE. And then lastly, this is also where you import all your footage. You could do that by double clicking in an empty area like this and selecting, and open. It brings it in to the root. And if you have a folder selected, if you hit Command I, you could bring it in. Or if you right click it, if you hit File, Import with your folder selected, you could say Import File and select a file. And you could right click here and say Import File. So multiple ways to bring things and create things. And that's pretty much everything you do. And then obviously, I don't want to get too basic, but obviously delete will just delete them out. It'll ask you if you want to delete them because it could be used in a composition. So for instance, if I have a composition and I bring a file into it and then I delete the file, it's asking me if I want to delete because it might be in a composition. So if I delete it, it's removed from the composition, and I'd be like, what the hell? Why is my thing not showing up? So just be mindful of that. This is where everything lives. And then last but not least, a fun little doodad is you can right click a file and say Reveal in Finder. And that's if you really want to get crazy, go nuts. But that's about it. Pretty basic. Next tutorial, we're going to cover the composition or timeline or sequence or whatever the hell you want to call it. See you then.